Hi, my name is Eva. I'm 32 years old and live in a small town about 50 minutes outside of Boston. Every morning, I make myself a cup of espresso, listen to the weather report, and walk to my office just over a block away from home. I'm the co-founder of a biotech startup in the healthcare field, a job that's not exactly easy to explain, especially to people who assume office work just means typing data into spreadsheets all day. My family never really understood what I do. Or maybe they just never cared enough to ask. To them, I've always been the odd younger sister. The one who dressed plainly, rarely wore makeup, and was always glued to her laptop or busy in meetings. Maya, my older sister, is the one they're proud of. She's 3 years older than me and has always been the perfect daughter in their eyes. Beautiful, graceful, soft-spoken, and effortlessly charming. Even in family photos, I looked like a blurry shadow behind Maya's spotlight. On Thanksgiving or Christmas, relatives would gather around her with glowing praise. "Maya, you look stunning in that dress." Or, "Maya, your new boyfriend's a doctor?" Impressive. And me? If anyone even remembered I existed, the line was always the same. "Eva? Yeah, she's doing something in biotech." They spoke about me like I was a footnote at the bottom of the page. I used to think that if I worked hard enough, if I stayed out of the way, did the heavy lifting, and didn't ask for anything, maybe one day my parents would finally see me, maybe even be proud. But no. The attention, the expectations, the compliments, they were always hers. And me? I was always the distant one, the dry one, the one they found hard to talk to. They never knew I stayed at the office until midnight, handling a crisis for a public health project worth nearly $2 million. They never once asked what it felt like to build a company from scratch with 3 college friends. When people ask me about my family now, I just give a faint smile and say, "We haven't spoken in a while." It's nothing. Not because I'm hiding something, but because there's really nothing left to say. We haven't talked in over 2 years. No texts. No calls. No birthday wishes. Just silence, like a broken line nobody bothered to reconnect. I used to believe family was the place you could always return to. But that belief shattered on my mother's birthday. It was late March. I had just closed a major funding round with an investment firm from New York. I planned to take 3 days off and fly back early to help my parents prepare for Mom's birthday, like I always did. Nothing fancy. I just wanted to be there. When I called to let them know, it was my dad who picked up. "I'm planning to come back early," I said. "Let me know if there's anything you need me to pick up or prepare." I still remember his voice. Not angry, just strange. There was a short pause. Then he cleared his throat. "Eva, if possible, don't come home this year." I froze, thinking maybe he was just concerned about my schedule. "It's okay, Dad. I've already cleared everything. I really want to be there." This time, his voice was firmer. "Maya is bringing her new boyfriend. He's a CFO, well-spoken, clearly successful. Your job, well, it's hard to explain. You showing up would just invite comparisons and make things awkward. So, it's best you stay." I went numb. My chest tightened, a cold sting crawling down my spine. I gripped the phone and said through clenched teeth, "Are you saying I make the family look bad? That I shouldn't come home because I'm an embarrassment?" He didn't take it back. In fact, he doubled down. "If you insist on coming, then don't call me your father." Then he hung up. No hesitation. No second thoughts. My apartment went eerily quiet. The espresso cup in my hand had gone cold. I stared into the empty air like the world had cracked open from a single sentence. I didn't cry. I just sat there. And for the first time in my life, I realized something. I was no longer part of the family I had tried so hard to hold together. I sat there in my familiar armchair by the window, early spring sunlight pouring through the white curtains, unable to warm the chill inside me. My father's words echoed again, sharp and final. "If you insist on coming, then don't call me your father." I looked down at my hands. My fingers trembled, not from anger, but from something deeper. The breaking point. I had always believed that even if I'd never be loved like Maya, at least I was still their daughter. Turns out I wasn't. I stood up and walked to my desk. Without hesitation, I opened my laptop and logged into my banking app. For over 2 years, I'd been sending money to my parents every month, covering their electric bill, water, internet, even cable. Nearly $6,000 a month, not counting the extras whenever Mom said the fridge broke or Dad's car needed work. They never asked if I could afford it. They just said, "Maya's struggling after switching jobs. If you can help, that'd be great." And I helped, quietly, as if it were my duty, as if responsibility were some invisible contract I had signed the moment I started earning. I opened the transaction history and scrolled. The total popped up, $15,720. My heart sank, not because I regretted helping, but because, even after all of that, I was never enough. I hovered over each bill, electric, water, internet. Click. Then another. Notifications popped up. Auto payment canceled successfully. No alarms. No warnings. Just silence. Just like how I'd always existed in my family. That night, I couldn't sleep. Not because I was angry, but because I kept replaying how everything had unfolded, and how it all ended. What my father said still echoed in my mind, that my entire family was willing to cast me aside just to impress Maya's new boyfriend. A man I hadn't even met. I'd been compared my entire life, but this was the first time I was publicly rejected, as if my existence was an inconvenience. Mom's birthday came quickly. I didn't call. I didn't send a card. I didn't post anything online. Not out of spite, just because I couldn't pretend anymore. At exactly 5 p.m., as I sat on my balcony sipping peppermint tea, my phone buzzed. It was Mom. I stared at the screen for a few seconds, then let it go dark. A message came in right after. "Eva, why is the power out? Can you check for us?" I set my tea down and opened the next one from Dad. "No water. No internet. Call the providers. Your mom's freaking out." I sat in silence, eyes fixed on the tree lean out back. No anger. No pain. Just an eerie calm. They didn't ask, "Are you okay?" Not one word about the phone call. They just wanted me to do what I'd always done, clean up the mess. Then came a text from Maya. "The internet's down. Guests are coming and Mom is almost in tears. What's going on?" I picked up my phone and typed. 3 weeks ago, Dad told me that if I insisted on coming home, I shouldn't call him my father. I'm just doing what he asked. If this is inconvenient, maybe find someone you're not ashamed to introduce. I didn't send it. I deleted it. Not because I regretted it, but because I knew, no matter what I said, they'd only hear what suited them. I set the phone down, leaned back in my chair, and closed my eyes. My little apartment was still and quiet. No complaints. No judgmental looks. No demands. The next day, Maya left a voicemail. "Mom's been crying since last night. Do you know how important yesterday was? My boyfriend met the family for the first time, and everything got ruined. You're so selfish." I listened to the whole message, then turned off my phone. For years, I hadn't been selfish enough. Now, it was time. I opened my work email and checked the weekend operations report. One subject line stood out. "New Jersey staff transfer to Boston, awaiting approval." I clicked on it and began skimming the list of names. Then I stopped. Jake Reed. That name made my heart skip a beat. I remembered it because just 3 days ago, my mother had casually mentioned Maya's boyfriend, Jake, works at a major corporation. I squinted at the file. Current position, head of finance, New Jersey branch. Transfer destination, Boston HQ. Approver, Eva Lane, co-founder. I let out a small laugh, just a reflex. The world was smaller than I thought. And I knew what was coming had only just begun. I sat still in front of my laptop, hand resting on the mouse, chest hollow, as if someone had taken a piece of my memory I'd clung to for far too long. $15,720. Every cent of it paid by me, month after month. Without reminders. Without delays. And yet not once had they said, "Thank you." Not once. I scrolled back through the payment list. The same lines repeating. $192.48 electricity. $136.72. Water. $248.50. Internet and cable. Month after month, like I was their unpaid family accountant. Unseen. Unacknowledged. Forgotten. I remembered the last real phone call I had with Mom about a year ago. It was close to midnight. Eva, the bathroom pipe burst. Can you call someone? Maya's on vacation with her boyfriend. You're the only one left. You're the only one left. It sounded harmless, but it was a bitter truth. I wasn't loved like a daughter. I was just the solution when the ones they truly cared about weren't around. And now, to be told not to come home because my presence didn't look good, that's when it all clicked. All these years, nothing I did was ever received with love. I was only remembered when a bill needed paying or a crisis needed solving. But when I needed something, no one was there. My phone lit up again. Another message from Mom. Eva, I know yesterday got a little tense, but if you could take care of the internet bill, that would be great. Maya is trying to keep things calm with the guests. I stared at the message like an outsider. No apology. No mention of Dad's cruelty. Just another request, like always. I set the phone down without replying. I stepped outside onto the porch, sitting in the wooden chair under the fading April sun. Boston wasn't warm yet, but the crisp air made me feel clearer. Lighter. I thought about Jake, Maya's boyfriend, and now my incoming employee. The irony. They had excluded me from my own mother's birthday to impress a man who was about to report directly to me. If life were a comedy, this would be its finest punchline. I returned to my desk and opened the email again. Subject: New hire confirmation. Jake Reed, transfer to Boston office. I clicked on the profile. Everything matched. Age, experience, degrees. A polished resume. Exactly the kind of man Maya would go for. Educated, established, charming. On paper, perfect. Then I looked at the attached photo. Something about it felt familiar. And then I remembered we'd briefly met at a conference 6 months ago. He'd shaken my hand and politely called me co-founder Lane. Neither of us had made the connection. Or maybe I hadn't cared enough about Maya to know who the man beside her was. Now I had a choice: approve the transfer or deny it. But I knew I didn't need to do anything. Life had already written the perfect script. All I had to do was sit back and watch it unfold. When Maya found out her boyfriend reported to the sister who had always embarrassed the family, the irony practically wrote itself. The next day, Jake arrived at the office. He stepped into mine with a folder in hand, his face slightly tense. When I looked up, his eyes met mine and widened in disbelief. "Eva," he asked softly. I offered a faint, composed smile. "Welcome to Pacific Genomics," I said evenly. "I'll be reviewing the entire financial plan for this quarter. I look forward to working with you." Jake froze. His face flushed, then turned pale. No one in my family knew I co-founded this company. No one had ever asked what I actually did. They just assumed I was a low-level desk worker. I didn't say anything else. I simply slid the contract across the desk toward him. Jake took it silently and left the room. I leaned back in my chair. Not happy, not sad. Just still. Like the wheel had finally turned, and for once, I didn't need to speak. The truth had done that for me. The morning of my mother's birthday, the Boston sky was unusually gray. A thick fog hung low, blurring everything outside my window like the world itself was bracing for something to unravel. I poured myself a strong black coffee, sat by the window, and stared out at the empty yard. I didn't plan to do anything. No texts, no calls, no birthday post. I just wanted the day to play out exactly as it was, without me. At 9 a.m., my phone buzzed. First message from Mom. "Eva, sweetheart, I think the power's out. Can you check for us? It's an important day." I placed the phone face down on the table. Same gentle tone. Same fake sweetness. Like nothing had happened. Like my father hadn't told me I embarrassed the family and shouldn't show up. 15 minutes later, another message from Dad. Still no power. Water's not running either. Is something wrong with the payments? Call the provider now. Short. Cold. No concern. No mention of the party I'd been cut out of. Just a command, like I was still their unpaid logistics manager. I sighed. For 2 years, I hadn't missed a single payment: electricity, water, internet, cable. I canceled them all the night Dad told me not to come home because I was too hard to introduce. And now, on the very day Maya was showing off her new boyfriend to the family, the house was falling apart. No electricity, no water, no internet. Exactly as expected. By 11 a.m., the text flooded in. Mom, Eva, please. I'm begging you. Guests are arriving. Can you just help this once? Dad, no electricity. We can't cook. Where are you? Take care of this now. Maya, seriously, Eva? Today is special. Mom's about to cry. There's no internet. I can't call anyone. I'm losing it here. Can you stop being selfish? I leaned back. My coffee had gone cold. The messages didn't make me feel vindicated. They didn't satisfy me. All I felt was a quiet, unwavering emptiness. Then my phone buzzed again, this time a video call. From Aunt Tina, the only person in the family who still sent holiday messages, even if I rarely responded. I hesitated, then answered. Her old kitchen came into view, lit only by a phone flashlight. She looked tired, eyes slightly red. Eva, she said gently, your mom's in a panic. The house is dark. Everyone's running around. No one knows what to do. I didn't say anything. I just looked at her. She paused, then asked, not accusing, not defending. What happened? You've never missed your mom's birthday. I know you have your reasons, but say something. I took a deep breath, kept my voice steady. My dad told me I made the family look bad. Said if I insisted on coming home, I shouldn't call him my father anymore. What do you think I should do after that? Aunt Tina froze. Her expression shifted instantly. In the background, I heard voices, my mother saying loudly, she's probably just sulking. No one would be heartless enough to do this. Then a sharper voice. Maya, Jake's almost here. Someone call the power company again. I can't believe she did this to us today. I gave a small, joyless smile. Aunt Tina heard everything. She didn't defend anyone. She didn't say a word. And then, unexpectedly, the screen shifted. A new face appeared. Jake. Same neat suit. Same polished look as in his resume. He looked at the screen and blurted out, almost involuntarily, Eva? Everyone in the room went still. You're Eva Lane? The one who runs Pacific Genomics. I nodded, eyes steady. A long pause. Then Jake turned to the room and said, she's my direct superior. She approved my transfer to Boston. The room fell into stunned silence. Maya's jaw dropped. My parents froze. I smiled calmly and replied, hope your introduction today goes well. Then I ended the call. Afterward, I set my phone down without another word. Outside, the dim afternoon light filtered weakly through the gray clouds. Everything was so quiet, it barely felt real. No voices, no follow-up texts, no calls. Just me and a strange, weightless sense of relief. The truth had been revealed. Not by me, but by them. I didn't have to expose anyone. I didn't need revenge. I just stayed silent and let it all unfold exactly as it was meant to. Jake had confirmed it clearly. I was his superior, the co-founder of Pacific Genomics, the company they thought I was just answering phones for. In that moment, my family's kitchen became a stage. And one by one, the masks fell. No one could stop it. And Maya, my sister, the one who once whispered to Mom that Eva should pick a job that's easier to explain, now stood frozen beside a birthday cake that hadn't even been lit. She had tried so hard to impress her boyfriend with carefully rehearsed compliments and a picture-perfect family. But in the end, it was that very boyfriend who revealed the truth. He called me boss, in front of everyone. I could picture the scene like a replay on loop. My mother, so flustered, she nearly dropped the cake tray. My father, red-faced, gripping the edge of the table. And the relatives, those who only showed up for food and judgment, sitting in stunned silence, their eyes darting around as they tried to process what had just happened. Aunt Tina still had the call going. Her expression was no longer curious, but something closer to respect. She didn't say much, just gave me a small nod before quietly ending the call. That evening, the first message came in. From Maya. Long, messy. A blur of anger and desperation. You knew all along, didn't you? You let it happen during the party. Mom's been crying all night. Jake doesn't even know how to react. Don't you think that was cruel, Eva? The message popped up on my screen. I didn't open it right away. Instead, I made a cup of ginger tea and sat on the couch, letting the steam ease the tightness in my chest. I didn't feel joy, but I didn't feel guilt either. 10 minutes passed before I finally hit reply. Just a few lines. No need for more. You say I was cruel. I was just at home. I didn't start the video call. I didn't call myself his boss. I didn't do anything. And if a single truth was enough to ruin the entire party, maybe that party was never built on anything solid in the first place. I hit send. I wasn't waiting for a reply. Half an hour later, my phone buzzed again. This time it was Mom. The message was short. I never expected you to choose this way to get back at the family. I closed my eyes and leaned back in my chair. Get back? Is that what they thought this was? I remembered being shut out of a family celebration. I remembered my role as daughter being dismissed because my job wasn't impressive enough. I remembered paying bills quietly, month after month, without a single check-in or thank you. I remembered trying so hard to be accepted, to be loved. And now, finally, I was done trying. Around 10 p.m., an email arrived. From Jake. Subject: I'm sorry. Eva, I'm sorry I didn't know sooner. I truly respect you for your work and for how you stayed silent today. I've never felt more ashamed, but not because of you. Because of how I let assumptions cloud the truth. I read it slowly, then typed my reply. Jake, you don't need to apologize. Everyone is responsible for how they choose to see others. And don't worry, I never bring family matters into work. But I hope you understand now. Sometimes silence is the greatest strength. I clicked send, powered off my screen, and placed my phone face down on the table. Tomorrow, I'd go to the office like usual. There would be reports to review, meetings to lead, and a world still turning outside. But now there was one difference. The people who once dismissed me finally knew who I was. And without a single shout, without any accusation, I had made them go silent. The next morning, sunlight filtered softly through the glass walls of my office, casting a warm golden glow across the floor. The air felt calm, as if the universe had given me a few quiet minutes to breathe before the day's noise returned. I sat at my desk, powered on my computer, and opened my inbox. One new message. Sender: Jake Reed. Subject: apology and goodbye. Eva, I don't know where to start. After last night, I couldn't sleep. I've been thinking. What happened probably shouldn't have happened in front of so many people, but at the same time, I feel like it gave me clarity, especially about you. I'm not ashamed that you're Maya's sister. I'm ashamed I didn't see her true self sooner. I can't stay in a relationship where basic respect doesn't exist. As of today, I'm ending things with Maya. Thank you for your silence yesterday. Thank you for the way you lead. Quiet, but strong.
Fair. Jake.
I read it twice, then leaned back in my chair. I wasn't happy that Maya got dumped. I just felt something right. Like, for the first time, someone outside the family had truly seen what I'd been living with for years. The things I was told I was too sensitive about. Too cold for staying quiet about. I didn't reply. There was no need. But 2 hours later, as I was reviewing the quarterly summary from the finance team, my phone lit up. A message from Maya. Eva, I know you're busy, but please can you talk to Jake for me? He's misunderstanding everything. I looked at the message, calm and unmoved. I didn't reply. Less than 5 minutes later, another message followed. You're his boss. You have influence. If you say something, he'll reconsider. I stood up and walked over to the window, gazing down at the busy street below. All those years, I had wished for just one message from Maya. one check-in when I was hurting, one word of encouragement when I failed. But there had been nothing. And now, with her relationship falling apart, the person she turned to was me. Not to apologize, but to fix it. I returned to my desk and typed. Jake didn't leave because of anything I said. He left because of who you are. And maybe for the first time, he really saw it. She didn't reply right away. An hour later, another message arrived. You're right, but I really don't want to lose him. I'll change this time. Please, just this once. I didn't respond. Not because I was angry, but because I was past the point of explaining. When I left the office that evening, the early spring breeze still carried a chill, but the sunset painted the rooftops in a deep, golden orange. I walked to the parking lot slowly, no rush, no worry. For the first time in years, I felt light. I hadn't sought revenge. I had simply lived my truth and let the rest unravel on its own. Maya had brought this ending on herself, and Jake, once dazzled by the illusion of a perfect family, had finally seen the crumbling foundation beneath it, the one I'd been standing on my entire life. That night, I played an old playlist, the kind of music that used to make me feel small and invisible during my early startup days. But now, it sounded different, like quiet affirmation. I had stepped out of the shadows, not by shouting, not by proving anything, just by standing still and letting the truth speak for itself. That's what Maya and everyone else in my family had never seen coming. I didn't need their validation anymore. I just needed to be myself, to live what I truly deserved. About a week later, on a rare Sunday afternoon when I'd promised myself not to open my laptop, the doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone and almost ignored it. But something made me glance through the peephole. My parents were standing at the gate. I stood there, still, letting my mind catch up to what my eyes were seeing. My mom held a small bag, her face tired. My dad stood with arms crossed, his expression less stern than during our last call, but still rigid, still familiar. I opened the door and said nothing. "Hi, honey," my mom said first, her voice raspy like she'd just gotten off a long flight. "Can we come in and talk for a bit?" I stepped aside wordlessly. No hugs, no warm greetings, just silence, heavy and stretching from the entryway to the living room. I poured 2 glasses of water, set them on the table, and sat across from them. My mom glanced around the apartment, simple, tidy, untouched by any trace of them. My father spoke first. "About your mom's birthday." I said some things I shouldn't have. I stayed quiet. He looked at me, then continued, slower this time. "Maybe we've been a little hard on you. Maya's been a mess since the breakup, and your mom's been crying nonstop. We just wanted to sit down and talk. Like a family." I nodded slightly, still silent. I knew that tone. The long build-up before the ask. Then, right on cue, my mom jumped in. "Well, we actually have a proposal." She hesitated, then placed the bag on the table and pulled out a folded sheet of paper. "We've thought it through. You're stable now. Your job is great. If possible, we're hoping you could help us with a monthly contribution, around $2,000. Just enough to cover living expenses, insurance, and a little toward retirement savings." I looked up at her. $2,000 a month? My father jumped in quickly, as if afraid I might misunderstand. "It's not much for someone in your position. We're family, Eva." I sat up straighter, my voice calm and even. "What about Maya?" My mom hesitated. "She's not doing well. After the breakup, she's down. Work's not going great. We can't pressure her right now." I let out a soft, quiet laugh, not bitter. Just unsurprised. Maya had always been the one who couldn't be pressured, and I had always been the one who could. I looked directly at them. "If Maya agrees to contribute her part, $1,000 monthly, then I'll sign a contract. One that clearly states, when you both pass, all assets, including the house, go to me." Silence. My father's brow furrowed. His face turned red. "Are you seriously giving your own parents conditions?" I didn't blink. Not conditions. Principles. I've already spent nearly $16,000 over the last 2 years, without anyone acknowledging it. If you want me to continue, things need to be clear. My mom turned to him, her voice starting to crack. Maybe we should talk it over. But he shot up from his seat, slamming a hand against the wooden table. The glasses rattled. We raised you for over 20 years, and now you demand a contract? Unbelievable. I remained seated, eyes steady. Dad, I don't owe you. If you think raising me was some kind of investment that requires a return, we can calculate it, line by line. But I'm not paying for it with silence anymore. He opened his mouth like he wanted to argue, then stopped. Lips pressed tight. Rage held behind clenched teeth. My mother stood and gently tugged his arm. Let's go. I stood too and walked them to the door. No hugs, no apologies, no goodbyes. When the door closed behind them, all that remained was the soft breeze drifting in through the balcony window. In that stillness, I knew another chapter had ended. And this time, I had written the final line. After that day, my parents never reached out again. No calls. No messages. No explanations. Not even an apology for the storm they'd brought into my home. As if every disappointment in their lives had been caused by their difficult daughter. But I wasn't surprised. I'd grown used to that kind of silence. The kind that doesn't come from shame or regret, but from people who don't know what to say when they're no longer in control. I kept living my life. Quiet mornings with coffee. Strategic meetings that ran late into the evening. Signing deals with partners who had once doubted a young woman could run a biotech company. And through it all, I stopped feeling guilty. I stopped apologizing for who I was. And I stopped wishing for anything from people who had never seen me clearly to begin with. I used to think it was wrong to say no. To say no to being the backup wallet, the default caretaker, the one who always picked up the slack just because I could handle it. But I was wrong. Because at some point, you realize love can't be measured in monthly payments. It can't be forced out of obligation or duty. If affection only shows up when the bills are paid, then that's not family, it's a transaction. So, I began cutting the invisible strings. The ones that tied me to the roles they assigned me without asking if I ever wanted them. I no longer kept a family photo as my phone wallpaper. I stopped remembering Maya's birthday. I didn't mark holidays with gift reminders or guilt-driven texts. And when no apology came, I stopped hovering in silence. I learned to place the period myself. One day, during a team meeting, Jake, now officially our company's head of finance, walked in with an investment report. He was focused, professional, and kept a respectful distance. We never talked about Maya. Not once. And I appreciated that. Some things, when fully understood, don't need to be spoken aloud. That afternoon, I left the office in a light drizzle and stopped by a familiar cafe. I chose a seat by the window, and just above it was a carved wooden sign. Home is not always a place. Sometimes it's a choice. I sat there sipping a hot latte, reflecting on the road I had taken. There was a time when I believed that if I just stayed quiet, gentle, reliable, I'd eventually be accepted. But the truth is, when you let people get used to disrespecting you, they begin to see your sacrifices as obligations and your silence as consent. I chose to stand up, not to go against my family, but to protect myself. I chose to set boundaries, not out of selfishness, but because I finally understood this. Self-worth isn't defined by someone else's needs or their sudden crisis when things fall apart. And if someone asked me, Eva, do you regret not helping your parents when they needed you? My answer would be simple. I regret that it took me so long to realize I deserved more than that. Because real family sees you as a whole person, not a wallet, not a fallback, not the reliable one they remember only when everyone else disappears. I know my story won't sit right with everyone. In our society, saying no to family is often called ungrateful. But try standing in my shoes. Be the daughter who was excluded from a birthday because she wasn't polished enough to impress. Be the one who paid thousands in silence and never once heard, "Are you okay?" I didn't abandon family. I just stopped abandoning myself. I didn't choose family in the traditional sense. I chose me. What about you? Do you think I was too cold? Or did I finally learn how to love myself at exactly the right time? Share your thoughts in the comments, because sometimes your story might be the light someone else needs when they're trapped between duty and freedom. Eva's journey is a powerful reminder. You don't owe your peace to people who only see your value when you're useful. You don't owe yourself to any relationship that wears the label family but forgets the meaning of respect. When you learn to set boundaries, when you stop letting your kindness be mistaken for obligation, that's not coldness, that's growth. Eva didn't seek revenge. She chose dignified silence to reaffirm her worth. And sometimes, the quietest stand is the first true step toward peace. So, what do you think of Eva's choice? Was she too harsh? Or was she simply protecting herself after years of being hurt? Leave a comment below and follow the channel for more honest, powerful stories that remind us what self-worth really means.